p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're up on these days, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, at Talk El Paso on Twitter, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, and Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Any of those places, all of those, well, both of those names and most of them anyway, you'll be able to find us as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland. And it has been, if you haven't stepped outside at all today, I'm a little bit sorry that I have. It's been still that chilly one around here. Sure, the snow, at least in my side of town. I live on the west side, and it wasn't too bad in my experience, but I had some friends sending me pictures from this morning about a couple inches in places like Mission Valley and even in the Northeast. Northeast seems to have gotten it the worst from what I've been seeing anyway, but it was largely snow-free and dry, again, in my neck of the woods by the time we're getting ready for the show here today. So not as bad as, well, the precipitation anyway, but just stay safe out there, folks. We're still looking at those freezing temperatures overnight. And that's, well, and during the day, I haven't seen the mercury move past 32 around here yet today. So just, keep aware and be safe with it as you're going about. And actually, had someone send me a picture from overnight of, early this morning, I guess, most accurately, of black ice in their neighborhood. So just because it's not too bad, that was never my biggest concern when it came to this winter weather. It was going to be the pretty extended freeze that we are still facing down. So just remember those 4 Ps, people, pipes, pets, plants. Plants, if you already take care of those, probably not going to make it, but take care of the rest of it here. Are looking at school delays for Friday for a good chunk of the Borderland here. All besides, I think Gadsden is the one we are talking about here, but EPISD, SISD, Isleta, Anthony, Gadsden will be doing remote learning. Las Cruces Public Schools, remote learning as well, but 2-hour delays for most of the in-person still education of organizations in the Borderland. Just rounding out the list here: Fabens, Clint, Tornillo, Cathedral High School, Loretto Academy, Idea Public Schools. Yeah, 2-hour delay or so for most of those. John Brazelton kind of echoing that, saying that except for the cold, El Paso's bad weather was a total fraud. Again, the snow may have fizzled here, but that was kind of the flashiest part of it. We're not done with it yet. Again, most of the stuff coming up says that not until Saturday are we really going to be through it, or are we going to be done with it. So batten down the hatches for the time being. We still got winds and almost below zero temperatures, potentially for some parts of town. So just keep it in mind. Keep your heater up. Keep those fires stoked if you're having to resort to that, because we still got a little bit of the second week of winter we get a year, I guess. I joke that we have 2 weeks of winter a year, and well, now we're definitely getting one of them. That's for dang sure. So yeah, the snow not bad. Just be careful as you're moving about. There's actually got a great picture. I'll see if I can put it up there on the stream for the next hour of giant icicles on our building here, because we have our entryway is eastern facing. So then by about midday, it was in shadow again, and quite the icicles, including engulfing side of a tree we got. So the temperature is still plenty cold. Just be safe out there and be safe with it. The real question that comes to me now is how this will, again, affect some of the political implications. I know it's a secondary consideration, but given how much has been built up around this because of, well, what happened last year at about this time, there was specifically 2 major impacts. One, how much people are then going to blame what does or doesn't happen on Texas Governor Greg Abbott after he made certain promises ahead of the wintry weather. Because you got to remember, this is not just happening in our area. This is stretching, the way I heard it put today, from Texas to Maine, Bangor, Maine, ending up having its own bout of this as well. I mean, I guess they are a little bit more suited for it than we are, but still a pretty extensive winter storm. Texas Governor Greg Abbott was getting cited a little bit for walking back statements about the lights will stay on to right before the weather hit, saying that it's impossible to make sure that everyone has their power on. Local situations could change, which is kind of just an obvious statement to me. If, some Yahoo, which I'm pretty sure I saw on the way in my way to work, looked like someone may have hit a power line or a telephone pole. Definitely looked cracked and hacking on the side of the road. So not quite sure what happened there, but they had the repair crews out here this afternoon. So that kind of situation can obviously happen, but the overall numbers and estimations I've been hearing has been about 70,000 in or out of power during this initial parts of this winter storm, which is very stark difference from the literal millions that other parts of Texas were seeing for an extended period without power. So if this works out, I mean, I'm sure those 70,000 will probably be less than pleased in total, but whether or not that will then actually affect the governor and his campaign, because a whole lot of stuff got to be looked through that right now. It's just what it comes down to. And then more specifically, how that will affect the launch of the power outage tour that the Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke campaign was planning to launch tomorrow, as a matter of fact, will be interesting because, sure, I've had a lot of issues with the timing for that campaign in general, just kind of wondering, why are you doing things so late? I mean, this could have worked out brilliantly for them had Texas seen just getting walloped again by the winter storm and tons of power outages. But the alternative, obviously, is if it works out fine, is that going to make people who otherwise may have been engaged with that idea and that tour and that criticism of the way the state government dealt with the last power outage, are they basically going to say, so what? It worked out fine this time. Small local problems, but whatever. It would have made more sense to me. I guess maybe they weren't totally planning around a winter storm, but just given the timing, a little suspect in my mind. It's been a constant problem for that campaign, though, of just doing things just a little bit too late to either remove relevancy or give your opponents a chance to whack at you already, or removing the total inciting issue going on here. Because again, what happened last February definitely still is in the minds of certain people. Way too often for voters, statewide and particularly locally, it ends up becoming, what have you done for me lately? And if lately it's worked fine, is anyone really going to be then too much excited about, yeah, it didn't work that last time, but it's fine now? That's not a great rallying cry when it comes to a political rally. So I'm not, it's a little weird to hitch part of your political ambitions to how the weather goes. But I don't work in politics for a variety of reasons. I'm sure it wouldn't last that long if I were. So again, we're doing fine in our region. It does seem El Paso Electric reporting pretty good situations throughout town. Just stay safe, and particularly as we get into those overnight hours when we're looking at those dropping well below freezing and even near zero, things could get literally dicey, icy. So just stay safe out there. Coming up after the break here, more we're talking about today, including supply chain issues, minor focus for this week, not quite a theme, but got to talk with a gentleman involved in international trucking that also has a good finger on the pulse of what the heck is going on in Canada, that whole trucker protest, and what it could mean for our region. So that interview coming up here in that next segment, due for that first break of the hour already. You are tuned in here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back after this break with more comments over on the socials. If you are so inclined to do so, more than welcome to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Otherwise, stay tuned. Back after this break with more.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heads up for an injury accident. Pelicano Drive approaching George Dieter. I-10 eastbound at Sunland Park. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. Stay left. Railroad Drive at Dyer, an injury accident. And the Trans Mountain Highway is closed for the rest of the day. TxDOT crews are out with snowplows trying to get the ice and snow off the road, but conditions are just too hazardous. Trans Mountain Highway closed today. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Under Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas economy is full speed ahead. Ranked the #1 state for business every year he's been governor. #1 in exporting products all over the world. #1 in businesses moving to the state. and well over 1 million new jobs since the pandemic. Under Governor Abbott's leadership, the Texas economy is the envy of the nation. But under Biden and Beto, Texas would come to a screeching halt. Open borders causing chaos and endangering our safety. Higher taxes hurting families and businesses. The Green New Deal crushing our economy. On March 1st, vote to keep Texas on the right track. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Great in-home care starts with a great match. Comfort Care can help you find the right fit for a parent or loved one. From companionship to personal care, Comfort Care offers different levels of assistance. Our franchisees thoughtfully match clients and caregivers for the best fit possible. A great match gives families peace of mind knowing their loved one is getting professional care and a friendly smile. Find your caregiver match at comfortcare.com. Each office is independently owned and operated.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. John Broutson commenting right now on a couple of issues, including part of that interview we're going to be discussing right now. But first of all, the whole winter storm thing, yeah, a little bit of a fizzle when it came to precipitation. Just don't forget about that freeze we're still in and going to continue to be in probably through Saturday, with the forecast looking like through. So just take those necessary precautions. Again, the flashier part, a lot of snow melting. Yeah, that's not the part I was really worried about. The freeze, still definitely here. Governor Greg Abbott with a response during a news conference today, reporting that 27 state agencies responding to the impact of the storm to ensure Texans have the support and resources they need to stay safe. Did importantly note that the Texas power grid is fully functioning and continues to be reliable. Definitely part of the situation, and further political implications coming out of this here. So we are going to be following more on that, and you can find that article over on our website, ktsmradio.com. But now to kind of a larger situation that we're definitely still feeling the impacts of here in the Borderland, that whole logistics, supply chain, all of those issues. It's often correctly called a lifeline of the country, and frankly, the Western Hemisphere for the most part, northern part of the Western, North America in general, is that of truckers. Truck drivers and the work they do literally bring the stuff to you. I mean, the phrase is often said, if you ate today, thank a farmer. If you got it from a store, the corollary to it, thank a trucker because they brought it to you. And so that protest that's been going on the other side of the northern border here in Canada may seem a little bit far removed and far-fetched from us. May even think, why are we even talking about that on the way we have the lens in our show, talking about the things that affect us here in the Borderland. I guarantee that you have probably noticed something that has not been as available or just not on the shelves. Again, the example of the moment that just kind of makes me laugh, but the implications of it are then make me stop laughing, are hot Cheetos. Just not available anytime I've been to the store lately. Again, not exactly a life or death issue, but given the popularity of such an item like that, the fact that it can't be kept into stock in our area then leads to the question of, okay, what else might not be available next time you go to look? So again, start laughing, and then I pretty quickly stop laughing. And so the interview we have today, done a little bit earlier this week, is with Mike Kucharski, owner of JKC Trucking, that operates around the country and on all sides of the border, actually north and south. They apparently have at least some staff in our area, at least based in our area. So I was able to talk with him about what the heck is going on, because it's been a little bit hard to get the arms around that, except out of some official statements that seem to be not, to my mind, addressing what the actual concern is. So to talk more about that, get some detail, we do have that interview with him right now. Enjoy. All right, joining me now, we have Mike Kucharski, owner of JKC Trucking. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Andrew, thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely, because there have been a lot of significant issues going on with trade, transport, travel to a certain extent, but the logistics side of all of these issues has been of increasing importance to us in our sector, and a lot going on across the country and across the border on the other side there. This is something that you deal directly with in your business, dealing with trucking, shipping, and those kind of things. It's been a little bit hard to pin down. What we're talking about is specifically what is going on with the Canadian border and in Canada itself, because there has been, honestly, it's just been hard to pin down. I've been following a lot of Twitter accounts posting about this. A few stories from like the CBC and a little bit of reporting done from outlets based in this country. But from your sense, dealing directly with this industry and probably having, individuals in context there, from your perspective, what exactly is going on when it comes to Canada and trucking right now?
So what's happening now is the Freedom Convoy 2022, Canadian truckers protesting to mandate freedom. And what I mean that is by a couple of things. It's heartbreaking what's happening in Canada. All the truckers protesting are family people, and they're being, saying that they're violent people, they're terrorists, which is not true. Instead of working, supporting their family, they have to protest to show the world what they do for the supply chain. Trucking's a lifestyle, and they love what they do. These truckers are driving 11 hours per day, isolating their cab. The truckers are not the problem. They are not the super spreaders. They had enough of these mandates, over-regulation, and overstep of the government. Just to give you an idea, there's still not enough capacity on both sides. Canada is one of our biggest trading partners. U.S. only does $520 billion in traded goods with Canada per year, and $21 billion worth of food is imported into Canada from the U.S. Both countries are still trying to dig themselves out of this black hole that COVID has created, and we're very close to the point of emergency. This is not going to end well. It's only going to leave empty shelves on both sides and causing skyrocketing inflation. It gets passed down to the end user, the American Canadian people.
So let's talk about the exact situations we're hearing it right now. The Freedom Convoy, as you put it here, has been, estimates I've put vary, but most circle around about 50,000 individual truckers being part of this convoy. I mean, again, estimates vary, but I've heard 30, 50 seems the most reasonable, going and leading this convoy to Ottawa, the capital of Canada, in order to protest these mandates. And essentially what it is that we're familiar in our area with the regulations that have been changing and shifting actually a little bit. Just a few weeks ago in last month, it was that the non-U.S. citizens and non-residents could cross with full vaccination proof. But Canada is doing that and requiring that of anyone crossing the border. So that means that for truckers, those that are making, say, deliveries just south of the border, for them to then come back, then this requirement kicks in for them. And that is kind of the core of this, and then everything that comes with it, it seems, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're demanding four things. I've written down here: immediate termination of all levels of government vaccine passports, what they're frustrated with, and all other contact tracing programs entering Canada passport system. Terminate COVID vaccine mandates and respect the rights of those who wish to remain unvaccinated. I think those are pretty fair, and these are the other terms. So these Canadian truckers are torn apart because most of them are vaccinated and some of them are not vaccinated. But the ones that are vaccinated also want to cease the diverse rhetoric attacking Canadians who disagree with the government mandates, and to cease to limit the debate through measures with the goal of censoring those who have varying or incorrect opinions. They should have freedom of speech. These are the full goals they are asking the Prime Minister to pass, and the Prime Minister is painting them to be some very aggressive group, which is completely not true.
Yeah, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, has been, very spicy language. I will agree with you in some of the statements coming out about this. And that's most of the reporting you can find. Again, some of the sources I've had to rely on just tracking this has been individual Twitter accounts, live streams, because it's been a little bit hard to get a handle on from this far away from it. So this has been going on in some format or another. I first heard about this, I want to feel, a few weeks ago as being discussed, and now it's in full swing. So if people are there on the ground watching this, what is going on right now in terms of the actual convoy approach to Ottawa and that situation?
You mean, and you're right. It's very frustrating that the news media is not tracking this or talking about. They just want to talk about Ukraine. We have our own crisis here at state level. Just to give you somewhere to look, there's a amazing something called Road Tales podcast. They're on the ground, they're boots on the ground, they're uploading videos of all the truckers. So if you guys want to see what's going on, every day there, actually every couple of minutes, something's popping up. Also, Freedom Convoy 2022, if you want to follow that on social media. And transportationnation.com is doing an amazing job. Every couple hours you get information about this, so you can see for yourselves what's going on, because right now you're only getting a perspective of the Prime Minister, and that's not much perspective at all. So everybody can be caught up with the situation at hand.
Absolutely. Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is JKC Trucking owner Mike Kucharski. Want to find anything more about them, the work they do, and how that experience is then leading to be able to talk about this, you can find them at jkctrucking.com. And so this is, again, the impacts that come from this are almost some of the more significant parts beyond even just the, hey, what is going on and the protests going on with it. But to delve into that for 1 second longer here, what seems the likelihood of a resolution at this point, of either these demands be accepted or the government digging its heels even further up there in Canada and saying no? I mean, what's the over-under in your mind at this point?
Well, I was hoping there'd be a quicker resolution and the Canadian government would take this a little bit more seriously, but they have it's just started, so they're digging in their heels and they're thinking it's going to go all away, or they're going to be able to tow all these truckers away. They will not. But what they don't understand is they punch the doomsday clock, and what that means is there's only a limited supply of food. We're all behind. Where every gas station or grocery store you go to, there's empty shelves. And with these truckers parked, that's even more. So if the glass is half full and you keep drinking out of it, there's going to be less product. So they're going to run out of food within a week. Curious how Trudeau's perspective is going to be next Tuesday, a week from today, and then 2 weeks from today, and 3 weeks from today, because that's when there's going to be a state of emergency where there's going to be missing food and products on shelves all over Canada.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a stat I keep in my mind that at any particular point, it sounds a little grim to put it that way, that the world is 90 days away from starvation, because that's the general food supply. But even in very specific areas, it can be much less than that. Again, given the advent of just-in-time supplies and all the logistics stuff that I've talked way more than I ever expected to in this modern era because of the impact we've seen on our daily lives in our local area. Hot Cheetos are still at a premium. They keep flying off the shelves and not being replenished. Having gone to Walmart myself over the weekend, saw it again. So that's not the most serious way, but again, it's an example of the impact that can have if the supplies don't show up. So that, I guess, is a real question that ends up coming from this is, if this continues, Canada obviously probably going to be seeing some very serious concerns and issue with it. But down here in the States and even across the country, what kind of products? We've talked about construction materials, lumber particularly, but in your experience, what kind of products could be affected by this if this does continue?
I'm glad you brought up the lumber, because lumber by itself, I think, want to say it's $28 billion of soft lumber is imported from Canada to the U.S. So let's say you're a family that you were waiting till COVID ended, because last year and the year before we had outrageous wood prices. You're not going to be able to build that home, because when a 2x4 is going to cost you $27 per piece, it's going to be madness. You're not going to be able to build that home, do that deck, because it's going to be just way too much. And that's just one of the products, that comes into the U.S. But also, as I mentioned earlier, $21 billion of food from the U.S. goes into Canada. It's going to be, Canada's a huge trading partner. We're going to feel it on both sides. This is why it's very frustrating that, the U.S. side is not trying to, talk to the Prime Minister everybody is just, standing still and acting like, this is a group of terrorists, which it is not. What's going to happen is when the store shelves go empty, now that is going to be terror.
Absolutely here. So we're coming up on the need for a break right now. Again, guest right now joining me is Mike Kucharski, owner of JKC Trucking, talking about what is going on in Canada, the Freedom Convoy, and the protests going on against the Canadian government's vaccine mandate requirements. So coming back, we'll talk more about how this is going to play out, the potentials here, and then the impacts we can see here in our region and what this could even mean for our own border trade. So stay with us. We'll be right after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. Several flights at the El Paso International Airport are listed as canceled or delayed this morning because of weather. Meantime, every major school district in the Borderland will be delayed tomorrow, except for Gadsden, which is now on remote learning. Authorities are accusing a 14-year-old East Texas boy of murder in the fatal shooting of his 8-year-old brother. The child died after he was shot Saturday on the back porch of his family's rural home near Athens, Texas. The shooting was initially blamed on a stray bullet from a nearby wooded area, but an investigation and autopsy reportedly proved that was impossible. 3 juveniles were at the house alone when the shooting happened, and the remains of a 25-year-old man reported missing in Houston in December were found in the trunk of a car at an impound lot in Dallas. The decaying body was found on January 19th at the Dallas impound lot and has been identified as Taylor Young. Police say Young was last known to be driving his Honda near a bank. His cell phone was found near an ATM. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a new crash. Police responding to an accident. Railroad Drive northbound at Trans Mountain. Medical crew on the scene of an accident in Altura between Copia and Pershing. Pelicano Drive westbound approaching George Dieter. There's an injury accident there. You could take Vista del Sol. And remember, TxDOT is closed to Trans Mountain Highway for the remainder of the day due to icy conditions. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. That was some winter event coming in last night, bringing in some snow, some gusty winds, and a push of some very cold air. And that cold air is here to stay, at least tonight and again for Friday night. By Saturday, we should start to see our slow increase in our temperatures. The big danger now will be the dangerous temperatures overnight with wind chill factors in the single digits at times.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break. Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
From the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Joined here again by owner of JKC Trucking, Mike Kucharski. Mike, thanks for sticking around with us.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So we are talking about all of the various impacts going on, centering around the protests going on with truck drivers, truckers in Canada, and the impacts we're seeing here. So we're talking a little bit about how this has been progressing and that it's been going on, and a little bit about kind of what the outcome seems to be. One further aspect I want to talk about is, even if this were to be, magic wand waving, everyone happy and this issue solved, how long, given that this is literally tens of thousands of trucks and trucks drivers, how long would it take from resolution point for this to then begin seeing of stuff moving again? So from resolution of the issue to then actual goods, services, etc., starting to move again.
You mean, I would say as long as it took the truckers to organize this, which they've been organizing since last week, to, if they came to a conclusion like right this minute, to disperse, it would take at least a week or longer to get all these bodies back into, their roles and start moving product.
So there's a lead time here, and obviously this probably isn't going to be solved in the within this minute at the very least. So given that this could be protracted here, you're mentioning about food supplies up in Canada, but what expectations are you having about what this could mean for the demand for goods and services within this country, goods specifically, but also then the services that rely on these goods in the near term?
I mean, it's going to affect both sides, and it's not going to be good, as I said earlier. It's going to shoot inflation through the roof. There's be more empty shelves. The one thing that did happen here in the U.S., we also had the mandate implemented by the Biden administration and the Supreme Court. Thank God, threw it out, and because the truck drivers here in the U.S. were getting ready to strike against the mandate that was presented by the president. And they were planning to do it before Christmas, the end of the year, to show that, hey, listen, they're not going to deal with this, and we dodged that bullet. That would have been catastrophic if that had happened. Here in the U.S. we missed it, but Canada is has this convoy going on, and furthermore, the American truckers support the Canadian truckers. Truckers are family. What's either further happening, the Freedom Convoy is trying to organize a convoy here in America, going from California to Washington, D.C., to show the American side that, hey, truckers are the backbone of this economy. We need to work with the truckers. The truckers are also here fed up. We're overregulated. The Canadian truckers are more overregulated than we are because they're crossing the border, and they're just fed up. They want to get the economy roaring again, but we need to go back to pre-COVID conditions.
One other factor that we were hearing about this week is that thefts of shipping. There might be some talk about here. I've seen a little bit about this, that, oh, well, we'll just put it on rails. But we've heard stories coming out over the weekend and a little bit before out of California specifically, where a lot of that backlog in this country is being seen, South Beach and, the Southern California shipping areas, that trains are getting broken into, and just the scene of some of those culverts of the shipping lanes just covered in strewn boxes that people have broken in and taken the stuff out of and discarded here. So we've got a lot of own shipping issues going on here. So to say that, well, there are alternate shipping methods available, it seems a little less persuasive at this point. How about from your perspective? Is that holding true?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk, oh, we should go back to, the rail, let's ship everything on the rail. So how's this? The rail never disappeared. We use the rail all the time. The rail actually has gotten bigger and bigger. But to give you a perspective, around Christmas time, the rail was 200% over its capacity. The cold weather that comes along slows down the rail. It just, that the rail is not the cure to cancer. And yes, the rail has been getting robbed for quite some time. I would say probably almost since the beginning of the pandemic. It's sad that this is happening, but yes, the rail is not going to save us. We need the rail and the truck drivers. We need all hands on deck to dig ourselves out of this hole and get back to normal.
Absolutely. Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Mike Kucharski, owner of JKC Trucking. If you want to find anything more about them, their work, and where they can talk about this kind of subject and their competencies with it, jkctrucking.com. So, of course, we are the other side of the country from where a lot of people may consider this issue happening, even if the impacts are probably nationwide. But this isn't so much a Canada-U.S. issue as it is a border issue in a lot of ways. And, of course, we're right situated on the border here. My understanding is that you even have some of your capacity in this area. So, I mean, this being an issue specifically with the Canadian government, but also involving border trade and travel, what kind of impacts would you think that, or future similar kind of situations could be seen within our area based on how this is progressing or a potential resolution to it?
I mean, my biggest question is to both sides of the government: how are these mandates helping with the supply chain? Because, in my opinion, they're not. One thing that is a little bit frustrating is that we're not learning it as other countries are lifting its mandates. Israel is lifting its mandates. I don't know if you've read up on Israel. The Israelis, got vaccinated and they had 2 boosters. So they actually took 4 shots, probably the most vaccinated country in the world. And they said, hey, it didn't stop the spread of COVID. We still got COVID, even with all this vaccination. So they're opening up. The UK is lifting its mandates, and they had some pretty thick COVID mandates and closures because of the waves of COVID going on. Everybody keeps forgetting about the Australians. The Australians were pushing it also, but except the truck drivers, after they striked, were automatically exempt, and they've been rolling the wheels. And Australia hasn't had any high peaks, or the truck drivers are exempt and everything is fine. We're not letting. I heard Denmark from another interview that Denmark is lifting its thing. COVID is over. I mean, the COVID strain is getting weaker and weaker, and we need to stop this madness. And get back to pre-COVID conditions. Start lifting these mandates. You know what I mean? We were supposed to close for 2 weeks, not to overwhelm the hospitals, and it's been over 2 years. This is madness.
So when it comes specifically to this kind of a protest and what we're seeing with it, I mean, yeah, the international perspective is very interesting and informative in how then things can progress. But I guess really when it comes down to it, could you think that if things continue, I mean, the Biden administration has withdrawn their mandate and there's even a suggestion of it for now, but if things were to progress in a similar way to what Canada is doing, could you expect that there could be a similar kind of situation happening on the U.S.-Mexico border if things were to continue at pace here, or even just, like you mentioned, maybe even a solidarity kind of movement?
Yeah, it would be catastrophic if something like happened on the Mexican border. Also, because since COVID, the supply chain was never was just in time. They never had a safety stock, and we blew through all that in the first year of COVID. There's no supply. There's no safety. There's when we're going to these warehouses, we're short on labor to unload these things. So it's far from good. And as you said, depending what country, what city you're in, if the trucks stop, to give you perspective, in 72 hours, stores are going to start running out of stuff, and the warehouses that replenish them, 72 hours minimum, maybe a week, maybe 2. By the 3rd week, definitely would be buried shelves everywhere.
So outside of the mandates that has been the focus of this protest, we've still got a lot of those, again, logistical issues that you just kind of detailed there. From your perspective, being involved within the shipping and transportation industry, what is needed in terms of either governmental or just logistical, or even just consideration from the general public support in order to get past this myriad of issues that we're still dealing with and having stuff available?
No, excellent question. Number one, stop imposing mandates on people, for one. Number 2, lift all the mandates. Number 3, I would say lifting the hours of service or extending the hours of service so drivers can drive more, because with the limited capacity of drivers, we need to catch up with this product. We need to get more out of the limited supply. I would suggest, increasing the hours, because it's going to be a state of emergency. Getting with the shippers and receivers, to be more efficient, in loading and unloading of these trucks. Talking to shippers and receivers to extend the shipping hours and receiving, to be more elastic. Having a narrow window in the middle of the night to deliver product in a pandemic, it's not working. It's not working. And the long game would be to lowering the driver age, which we're starting to do here in the U.S. And an infrastructure bill. So an infrastructure bill is, it's a different definition for whoever you're talking to. But I'm talking about a bill to confirm that money is dedicated and spent for transportation, highways, rails, expanding the rails, expanding the ports, rehabbing all this stuff. Because all this technology we have is old, and there's more and more people in the U.S. and we need to expand this so we could keep up with demand in the future.
A lot of problems that definitely need to be addressed over here, and we'll see how it all turns out. But again, joining us right now has been Mike Kucharski, owner of JKC Trucking. Again, their website, jkctrucking.com. Thank you very much for talking with us to lay out some of the details on both the overall situation and that specific one with the protest going on in Canada and what that could mean for us here and across the country here today.
Thank you for having me on and for your support.
All right, we have to take that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get into more of those comments and calls. Open up that phone line. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Railroad Drive, northbound at Trans Mountain, look for a crash there. East Overland Avenue, downtown at South Campbell. Accident reported. You could take Stanton or San Antonio as an alternate. And Pelicano Drive, westbound approaching George Dieter. An injury accident there in the clearing stages. As a reminder, TxDOT has closed 375 Trans Mountain Highway for the remainder of the day due to icy conditions. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Ben and Ashley I, Almost Famous, is the Bachelor Recap podcast you can't miss. Breaking down every episode from Bachelor Nation.
Clayton begs for her to stay. That's a nuts response.
Yeah.
so that absolutely
fantastic.
That absolutely tells me that this will be an awesome season. And I
agree.
Listen to Ben and Ashley I, Almost Famous, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur. We entrepreneurs are always improving our listening skills. My dad told me at age 29, Michael, you're a man now. You're about to be married. You have responsibilities. You'd be a fool to start your own business. I did what any loving son would do. I started 5 of them. I didn't listen to my dad, but I have learned to listen to my customers, which is why my 5th successful business, Patriot Software, created accounting software to help non-accountants like me keep accurate accounting records. Go to patriotsoftware.com. Use promo code RADIO and get 2 months of accounting software free. That's patriotsoftware.com.
PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those. You'll be able to find us and chime in, as we have a few tuning in, chiming in, and doing so that way. John Brazelton making the comment right ahead of the interview there that, American truckers potentially planning an 18-wheeler convoy protest from California to D.C. Now, of course, not exactly a similar situation to this country at the moment anyway, particularly given the Supreme Court's move that has happened, as was again talked about by our guest, thanks to him from previous segments, Mike Kacharski, owner of JKC Trucking. Those issues and what could come with it may seem, again, a little bit far removed, but given that we've only seen an increase in the demand and actual total amount of goods that have been shipped through our region since the start of the pandemic, this stuff is just kind of a little bit important, and it won't be too long at all, I would expect. If that continues to drag on north of the border, that here around us and just south of the border, we might continue to see impacts here. So it's one of the things that I am keeping an eye on and going to be doing so for the foreseeable future. But in case you missed it, we do have that phone line open right now. If you're wanting to call in to talk about that, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Again, some of the major stories for today. Yeah, the winter weather or precipitation, most specifically, a little bit of a bust in terms of the precipitation, very specifically, because it's not. That's the most important point in my mind. It's really going to be the freezing temperatures that we're expecting through Saturday at this point that are going to be, could affect your walls, your pipes, your people, your pets, all those things. So just stay safe with that out there. But being reported across the state, Texas Governor Greg Abbott with his news conference today saying that things seem to be moving apace. Some of the latest reports I've seen that in a localized area, maybe about 30,000 people across the state are out of power. Estimates vary, but Texas not seeming to be the hardest hit by this storm. But of course, there's a lot more people in Texas than a lot of other states in the path of this storm as well. So the kind of the central, the mid-Atlantic and southern states seem to be getting hit the most there. Michael Pata is asking when are we going to have local candidates on who are running in the primaries. We're have some conversations going on with them, got those scheduled for the upcoming weeks here. So don't worry, we're definitely getting into that as we end up into early voting, particularly, of course, before Election Day. We've got some of the major races that won't be really able to be talked about until after we hit those primaries, such as amongst other things, the candidate that we had mentioned that is going to be running as an independent against the otherwise, party-wise, unchallenged El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. We're going to be probably talking with her a bit after the actual primaries here because the unique situation involving that candidate and how it works, requiring people who didn't vote in the primaries. So we'll get into that once we're past that point. But then also with the Texas 16th Congressional District, there are no opponents on the primary ballots. So it will be essentially a pass-through for the incumbent, Veronica Escobar. Well, okay, she does have an opponent. I correct myself there. But on the Republican side of the ballot, there is not. Irene Armendariz Jackson will be getting the nod there regardless. So probably focusing more on that race, probably get into the primary on that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's a decent point question to ask, but given how last minute El Paso is, we didn't want to get it too far in advance, and we'll probably have on a guest or two in the upcoming shows to do that, but still with the ability to take plenty of calls and comments on it, because getting down to the core of the issues, the way we focus on things when doing those kind of interviews on this program is what are your policies? What do you actually want to do? Because sure, values, how you make your decisions, those are important things. We'll probably address those a little bit, but the bulk of the time I'm interested in talking about is, okay, what are you actually going to do? What is your plan? What is your policy? What are the proposals and how will you implement them? Because, the old joke / truism that comes out, how do you know a politician is lying? Their lips are moving. I find that frustrating at best, and just allowing that to be as a, well, they'll talk a good game and then not follow through with any of it once they end up in office. I don't like that. I'm frankly sick of it. So that's why I like talking about the policy. What are you actually going to do so there can be I mean, it takes more than just me to do it, but as the opportunity for you and me to then come out and say, okay, you said you would do this. Where is that? Where is it coming to fruition? What are you doing to accomplish this? Those kind of things is frankly what I think is one of the more useful parts of doing these kind of interviews, because sure, promoting a candidate, getting the word out about them, that's very much of an interest to them, I have no doubt, but being able to talk about what they're actually going to do and then foresee the follow-up, it can be a little bit hard to get your arms around individually or even on a single show. But if it just becomes a part of the program, a part of the way we even just think about our elected officials, even just locally, I would find that to be more useful than not. But again, I might, Michael Pattas, again, representing that County Commissioner Precinct 4, does have primary opponents. In fact, talking with at least one of them yesterday. So again, those, we'll be setting those dates coming up here. Don't worry, we'll make it very clear when we're doing that. Just a lot to get through. We got a lot of changes, a lot of stuff going on with the show, but elections are an absolute focus. So do not worry. We'll be talking more about that. We're up to for that break at the top of the hour here. So coming out of the break, we'll get to more of those comments and more of those discussions about the things that affect us here in the Borderland, those places, delayed openings for tomorrow. The precipitation may have been a bust, but that winter weather's still here with us. Focus for now, as it's a pressing local issue, but also that phone line open. But stay with us. More after this break.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a crash on the 54 Gateway southbound before Martin Luther King exit. Police responding to that accident. Railroad Drive northbound at Trans Mountain. Accident there. Accident reported downtown East Overland Avenue at South Campbell. And an injury accident, Pelicano, approaching George Dieter. Remember, the 375 Trans Mountain Highway is closed for the rest of the day due to ice and snow. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity.
New tires for the car? Oh, here's my card.
I order takeout, use my card. And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil.
What are you going to do?
Get a low fixed-rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online, and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR, but with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 4.98% APR with autopay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com/radio.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 4.98% APR to 19.99% APR and include a 0.5% auto pay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/radio for more information.
We all have our favorite podcasts. We listen day and night. Now iHeartRadio is celebrating the best in podcasting. Our 2022 iHeartRadio Podcast Awards are coming. Tonight, join Will Ferrell, Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, Bowen Yang, Martha Stewart, Paris Hilton, Bethany Frankel, Wilmer Valderrama, and many more as we honor the brilliant storytelling and inspiring conversations behind the podcasting explosion. So wonderful. Watch live exclusively on iHeartRadio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. And listen on iHeartRadio tonight at 9.
John, we can't keep putting this off.
Okay, I'll clean the gutters.
I'm talking about your dad.
Well, what can we do? He wants to stay in his house.
We can make his house safer.
You know he's a proud guy. He's not going to take all our fussing lying down.
That's the idea.
For older people, falling and breaking a hip can be devastating. For easy ways to make home safer, visit orthoinfo.org/falls. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the Orthopedic Trauma Association.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A dangerous winter storm is impacting millions in the U.S. Ohio transportation official Rebecca D'Angelo says this storm is a little unique.
It's slower moving than we originally thought.
It already dropped heavy snow in parts of the Midwest and has covered parts of the South in ice as it moves east all the way up to Maine. Some states are warning travel could be impossible and are bracing for widespread power outages. Central Alabama may have been hit with some tornadoes today. There are reports of some twisters touching down in Birmingham, but there are no reports of any injuries. Enough is enough. That's what President Biden said about rising rates of gun violence in the U.S.
Enough is enough because we know we can do things about this, but for the resistance we're getting from some sectors of the government.
Speaking in New York City, Biden highlighted acts of gun violence against law enforcement officers. He said grieving family members have to bury a piece of their soul when loved ones fall victim to gun violence. The Pentagon spokesman says the death of the top leader of ISIS dealt a significant blow to the terrorist group.
Haji Abdullah was a very hands-on leader and involved in many day-to-day operations of ISIS.
John Kirby told reporters that there were no U.S. casualties. Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qurayshi blew himself up during the U.S. Special Forces operation in Syria. A faulty U.S. helicopter had to be destroyed in the operation. A jury deciding the fate of attorney Michael Avenatti says it's deadlocked on 2 counts against him. The judge in the case told jurors to keep deliberating. He's accused of stealing $300,000 in book proceeds from adult film actress Stormy Daniels. At the closing bell, the Dow fell 518 points to 35,111. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Canada's military may need to be deployed to end a large protest of truckers opposed to vaccine mandates. The truckers and their supporters, part of a group called the Freedom Convoy, are blocking roads and some U.S. entry points with large blockades of semi-trucks. It's in protest of Canada's coronavirus rules, which require unvaccinated truckers entering Canada to quarantine for 2 weeks after crossing the border. South Carolina lawmakers are considering legislation that would expand school choice in the state.
One bill would allow families to enroll in public school districts outside of their own district, while another would let families get funding for private school. The South Carolina Association of School Administrators and the South Carolina School Boards Association supported the open enrollment bill that went before the Senate Education Subcommittee on Wednesday. The next meeting on the proposed measure has not yet been scheduled. I'm Matt McClure.
New Jersey is getting a new state attorney general. Today, Governor Murphy named his former chief counsel to be the next top prosecutor in the state. Scott Pringle reports.
The 35-year-old Matt Platkin has been a key policy advisor for Governor Murphy after being one of his first campaign volunteers before he was elected. Platkin will take over as the state's top prosecutor for Andrew Bruck, who has been serving as the interim state attorney general. Platkin says one of his key priorities is civil rights.
We must acknowledge that for too many, the trust between law enforcement and the communities we serve is broken. We will redouble our efforts to repair that trust.
Another top priority, he says, is going after illegal guns and violent crime.
A wall covered in baseball cards is the last thing an Idaho family expected to find when remodeling a home in Boise. Melissa Brote told CNN she was peeling roof shingles off a bedroom wall when she found 1,600 baseball cards glued to the plaster underneath. Brote said the cards are impossible to remove. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. HOPE. That's HOPE. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Did you know that about 70% of the heat transfer in your average home is through the ceiling? What that means is no matter what type of air conditioning system you have, insulation will make your home more comfortable. Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing has the ability to install closed cavity insulation, which can dramatically improve the performance of enclosed patios and converted garages. So call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing for a free estimate at 595-4529.
What is iHeartRadio? All your favorite music.
This is Steven Tyler and Joe Perry from Aerosmith.
James from Metallica here. It's iHeartRadio. All your favorite stations, where you live or where you used to live. And of course, virtually every podcast on the planet at your fingertips. And it's all free. If you don't already have it, download the free iHeart app today. iHeart. Discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
iHeartRadio. Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
I am a veteran. I spent 2 years alone and homeless.
As America's veterans face challenges,
DAV is there.
My victory was finding the support to get back on my feet.
DAV helps veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I'm a veteran. When I got out, I felt like nowhere was safe.
So veterans can reach victories, great and small.
My victory was finding the help I needed. Thanks to DAV, now I feel like I'm human again.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Twitter at Talk El Paso, Twitch, Andrew J. Polk, or the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube. So a lot of ways you can join in and tune in here. So we have Michael Pettis, John Broughton, Ed Clore tuning in, chiming in over there. Ed, let us know the broadcast sounds good on Twitter today. Yeah, I'll take your word for it. We're obviously on air as we are. So everyone out there, particularly if you're on the roads right now, hope you're staying safe, driving safe, particularly as we're getting those sun down and the shadows getting longer already this afternoon. Might see some ice developing out there, so just be safe as, well, you do go about your day. And the next couple of days, as we're looking at those solid below freezing temperatures, sure, precipitation, not exactly, at least in my neighborhood. I looked out specifically early dawn morning to see a little bit of accumulation of snow. My spouse posted up a picture of just a little bit kind of in the corner of the house next to us saying, El Paso Blizzard 2022, we will rebuild. So not that bad when it came to that, but again, those freezing temperatures, the major concern I had to begin with, because that's when you're going to start getting those pipes and such going. It's, it'll be fun through Saturday, but as an announcement on that actually as well, are going to be having the El Paso History Radio Show continue apace there in the light of the weather, some plans changing there. So there will be a new edition of the El Paso History Radio Show airing this Saturday as well. So stay tuned for that. Now, the political implications that come out of all this, we've been talking about this for a couple of days, and we'll see if these freezes have anything more. Again, even within our region, we are expecting there to be hovering around 0 overnight with the wind chill. And we haven't had as many problems as the rest of the state, even because of being partially on a different grid. Also, partially, we had our own issues a little bit over a decade ago that had a lot of lessons learned that local utilities have dealt with, and that the question was, how has the rest of Texas done when it came to overcoming it from just last year? And the answer so far seems to be decent enough that it's not anywhere approaching what happened previously. I mean, again, the governor got a little bit of flack, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, about even being called a walkback, after he had previously said that Texas will keep the lights on, and then saying more recently this week that, well, some areas might lose power because of local issues. I don't really see that as a walkback so much as that's just reality. And even on the way in here today, pretty sure I saw a downed power or maybe just telephone pole from someone who probably was driving a little bit faster than they should have down Mesa and may have missed a corner. Just saw the repair crews on my way. So who knows? And then Michael Pettis pointing out that, there are absolutely a lot of delayed starts for local school districts starting tomorrow. I believe that's still for our New Mexico listeners, those for the Gadsden and the Las Cruces public school areas. They are going to be looking at regular times, in-person learning. Las Cruces public schools will return to in-person learning on Friday. They will run on regular schedules there, and then Gadsden ISD, they're going to be doing remote learning tomorrow, so no delayed starts there, it does seem. But basically every other school district in the El Paso area seeming to be on at least a 2-hour delay or delayed start of some kind for tomorrow, so good thing to be mentioning there. And John Browson reminding us, turn your faucets a steady drip to protect your pipes overnight. And another bit of advice that doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think. I mean, this is all not, even if I have plenty of friends from up north or that have moved around the area that came from northern clime saying, oh, y'all are wimps about this. But a piece of advice that doesn't get talked about enough in our area about that is that keeping the pipes dripping is not bad. I mean, a little bit of waste of water, sure, but you also got to maybe open up the cabinets underneath it, because the point is also to keep the pipes below it from freezing. It's not just the movement of water that does it, but the temperature within your house. Often talked about, you want to keep the temperature at least 55. I keep it way more than 55. That just sounds miserable to me. So we keep it up reasonable overnight in the 60s, at least in my house. Yet 55, if I'm seeing my breath inside, something is wrong. So yeah, Michael Pettis echoing the same thing there. Very important. A.W. Hill referencing some of our broadcast things going on. They should be clamping down that issues. Last update I got on our signal, so things should be improving. If anything is horning in on our signal, that's it's a separate issue, different issue. But we're up here and we are live as we are 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. We do have that phone line open, by the way. That might have slipped by as we're talking about all these local issues. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We'll be taking those calls. Again, thanks to our guests from the previous hour, talking about what the heck is going on in Canada and the overall trucking situation, both within, the Great White North, but then also within the United States and even affecting our area directly. Then we'll probably see some further disruptions from all of these storms. I seem to recall in some of the winter storms in just recent years, there were like the McDonald's saying that they had run out of certain patties or dishes or sandwiches or buns, even more specifically, if I'm remembering correctly, due to delays in shipping coming from other places. Who would have realized how much foreshadowing that would have been from previous years to now, when, a lot of stuff is just not available from the whole trucking situation. So probably going to be a little bit compounded over this next week or so. Yeah, or give or take however long it takes for this storm to clear and then things to get back up and running as much as they were already. Again, ongoing issues going on with this. A.W. Hill, welcome for the answer. And Michael Pettis saying, in our area, code construction is kind of a fun thing, isn't it? In a house we used to live in, I do recall that there was a large open plan kitchen with a large ceiling that kind of abutted back up to the end of the bathroom of the upstairs. So basically the roof kind of came in and then went up into the kitchen for a high ceiling, and none of the angles matched up. There was like a foot between all of it because someone said good enough when they were putting it together and didn't get noticed until the drywall or it was already up and the painting going on. I don't think so. Well beyond time where you could do it if you didn't want to then have another delay of several months in getting that house together. So yeah, code is a special thing and should be enforced, but isn't always. Michael Patter's asking, when we saw that deep freeze, I clock it as 2011. That was my remembrance of when that was away at college at the time I came home to my parents' house and saw that there was in my old bedroom a giant bulge in the wall where a pipe had burst somewhere up high in the wall and was causing the paint and the drywall to bulge out. So I clocked that as 2011. If anyone has a different remembrance, let me know. But for my mind, that is the week that we basically had that full solid freeze. And beyond pipes bursting in a lot of places, we also saw almost all the palm trees dying. Very specifically, there was a house up the street from ours that had this beautifully laid out front yard with like 7 to maybe a dozen palm trees that were planted strategically, a nice layout, and all of these like concrete pavers and walls built up around them. Really nice laid out, and they got wiped out by that freeze because, surprise, surprise, palm trees are not designed to be able to handle a freeze, and they all croaked. Saw a little bit of that of ourselves last year, if you'd remember. Mostly some browning of the leaves and some things. Most of the palm trees I've noticed in my neighborhood seem to have bounced back, but hey, we'll see how this week works out. Absolutely. Ed Clore agreeing with 2011 there. Yeah, go figure how that happened. Michael Pata is addressing the code here. So, I mean, we got a lot of fun that we're going to be dealing with as we see this. So again, people, pipes, pets, plants. Hope you already dealt with the plants. Otherwise, you may have missed that boat. But keep the rest safe if you can as we go into the rest of this freeze. But, you know, coming out of the break, as much as I love a good weather report, we'll also talk more about those primaries coming up. Question to ask about what is actually contended in this primary. A bunch of seats that aren't, which makes me sad, but plenty that are. So we'll detail into that a little bit coming out of this break. Again, that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a crash reported on the 54 Gateway southbound before Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Another accident reported downtown East Overland Avenue at South Campbell. You could take Stanton or San Antonio as your alternate. TxDOT has closed the 375 Trans Mountain Highway for the rest of the day due to icy conditions, and the I-10 eastbound closing all lanes at Tornillo, Cary Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Win $1,000.
No way. No way. No way.
Oh, baby. Yes way.
No way.
It's a grand in your hand. Listen every hour from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win.
A grand in your hand is brought to you by Approved Autos. Drive out in your new ride in less than an hour. Choose from every make and model from their super clean, hand-picked inventory and get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Autos, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Gila River Hotels and Casinos.
Experience bigger, bolder, and better at Phoenix, Arizona's newest resort with new guest rooms, suites, pools, and amenities. Taste the here and now at our new rooftop restaurant and lounge. It's time to own your moment, so you do you. For more information, visit playatgila.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Ben and Ashley I, Almost Famous, is the Bachelor Recap podcast you can't miss. Breaking down every episode from Bachelor Nation.
Clayton begs for her to stay. That's a nuts response.
Yeah.
So that absolutely
fantastic.
That absolutely tells me that this will be an awesome season. And I
agree. Listen to Ben and Ashley I, Almost Famous on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
Hi, Phil Swift here for the Flex Seal family of products. You know, there's a lot of ways to protect your home. You could dig a moat. You could bubble wrap it. Or you could train a pack of wolves to protect it. But the best way is with the Flex Seal family of products. So when you need to patch, bond, seal, repair, and stop leaks fast, get the Flex Seal family of products. Available at FlexSealProducts.com and fine retailers.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for joining in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, which Ed Clore says sounds better for whatever reasons. It all comes out from the same place, this computer next to me, so sure, I'll take your word for it. Just don't have a good answer why it sounds better or not. But hey, those are the things that you can do. Also, Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways you can do so. So we were talking a little bit about John Browson letting us know that his garage had no insulation and the pipes had no insulation. Fixed both those problems. What's the phrase that I probably not correctly attributed to former President Abraham Lincoln? You had 10 hours to chop down a tree. How would you do it? Spend the first 9 sharpening and then the last hour chopping. An ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. Absolutely, though that may seem a little trite when you're actually in the situation. If you're finding yourself wondering about your pipes, good luck. Keep the heat on in your house and those cabinets open, etc. And maybe do the research now to figure out who a good plumber to call after this and drywall repair specialist might be, because we do get this infrequently, but enough that it's worth knowing what to do. But we were talking a little bit compared to the AM radio sounds better. I was letting us know. Oh, yeah, because AM radio is, of course, the AM signal that goes out here, but over online, it's a digital signal. That's why we do recommend, if you can, iHeartRadio app or KTSMradio.com. It is what it is. It's different levels of technology, but we appreciate everyone who is listening through the more traditional means as well, particularly in your vehicles. Appreciate you not trying to do a video live stream while driving, and just stay safe out there while out on the roads. But talking a little bit before the break about what is going on with some of our elections and the focus is going on them. There are a couple of races that are going to be, well, decided during the primaries. Not all of them, but a couple of them in town that just... It's frustrating to me personally that is the status we have, because you would think, particularly in this very politically active time that we've got, I feel like more people are thinking about it, involved, well, in general, if not actually following through with it and going out to vote 3.5% and 4.5% respectively for our last 2 elections. But don't get me started on that soapbox. But we do have at least a couple of state house races that are going to be determined by this primary elections. This isn't exactly a new current. It happens way too often in my mind here in El Paso, including the state house and a couple of at least one county commissioner seat, county commissioner precinct number 2. That is the seat currently held by Democrat David Stout, being challenged by Carlos Soto and Judy Gutierrez. But as I believe Michael Pettis did point out, there is a competitive one for the District 4 county commissioners. Precinct 4, rather, is the correct term when you're talking about commissioners. Precinct 4, I think I fall into that. I should probably know that a little bit better, but I see plenty of the signs when I'm on my drive around here. So if I'm not in it, I'm right on the boundary of it. That one, on the Democrat side, we have incumbent Carl Robinson, and then challenging him, Sergio Coronado and Dorothy Sissy Bird. And then on the Republican side of the ballot, we have Blanca Trout, David Adams, Adam Fatuch. If I am saying that wrong, I apologize. Fatuch, and Victor Navarrete, who are on the Republican side of the ballot. So that is one of the races that does have challenge. There are umpteen judges' seats. And as much as I encourage everyone to be informed about the judges and the issues in front of them, I also am not going to put a gun to your head and say, tell me about what each candidate stands for in the judges' races, because in my opinion, sure, the judges' seats are important if you ever end up in court, but for the most part, the people who are most concerned about that and will see the most impact from those seats are going to be the people who end up going into the courthouse a lot, either frequent flyers or people who work in the legal industry. And those are the people I tend to listen to most on who the heck to talk to or judge to about that. But again, it's important to look below the top of the ballot. You can see all the lists for yourself, figure out who you're going to vote for, at least the names involved here, by going to epcountyvotes.com, see both of them. It's important to remember that Texas does have a closed, well, it's a primary where you declare which party that you are going to be participating as, and you are then restricted to that primary. There was some debate going on earlier if that counts as open or closed. I'm pretty sure it's closed, but you don't have to show, say, a registration card or anything saying that I'm a card-carrying Democrat or Republican, etc. But you are then limited to that primary. So if there was a, say, runoff in the other party's primary, you couldn't then switch over and vote in that one, is what it comes down to. So there is again, to correct myself earlier, there was a candidate running against current El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar of DMB Del Reis Montañas Berrios. She is running for that seat. And then, of course, on the Republican side of things, there is the one candidate that will be going through now to the general election, Irene Armendariz Jackson, who we had on the show previously in previous campaigns, and we'll probably do so once we get past this election, since she is unchallenged on this ballot. Is also some challenge going on for the Texas 23rd congressional district, currently held by Republican Tony Gonzalez. He's being challenged by Alma Arredondo Lynch and Alia Garcia Also, a couple running on the Democrat side of the ballot, Priscilla Golden and John Lira. That one's a little bit harder to get your hands on locally because that's the district, if you recall, that runs from El Paso's Mission Valley all the way out to the outskirts of San Antonio, still looking like that amoeba about to engulf and consume San Antonio. So, take it as you will. It covers a lot of empty space, Big Bend area, but I'll be surprised if Tony Gonzalez ends up becoming unseated in this. But hey, stranger things have happened within our local elections. And again, some of the contentious judges, county judge, county court at law seats, there are a lot of them running unopposed, I will also admit. But within the county commissioner precinct 2, we talked about that one a little bit. But then within the state house, that's the one that is just a little bit baffling to me, given how much contention. And it's just going to forever baffle me that there wasn't just much of a contest against that, because we even have a town hall coming up that all the candidates that were invited to for House District 75 and House District 79. That, of course, where we have State Rep Mary Gonzalez for House District 75 being challenged by Rene Rodriguez. And then that interesting one we talked about towards the start of the week with Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., about the challenge between two incumbents for House District 79, as the former district held by Claudia Ordaz Perez, I believe that was 74, got essentially district out of the area, the bulk of it. Anyway, still technically present. That's why it's on the ballot here locally, but no names that you and I will recognize from El Paso voting records, because it's going to be kind of similar to that Texas 23rd congressional district of being way covering those empty spaces as you head well off to the eastern parts of Texas. So those are some of the competitive or not competitive races as it comes down to it, because again, it baffles me how this could still happen in this day and age when we're talking about involvement and wanting to get people involved, and just with the built-in campaign line that would come from anyone on the other side of the ballot wanting to challenge any sitting state rep. And again, I have no issue with this. Is not about any issue I may or may not have with them personally, but just as a kind of baffling that no one saw this, and we're saying, given how often we talk about people wanting to be involved in politics and people wanting to, stand up, run it. We've had at least one person say they're going to run for school board. Need to go back and check the recordings, because I'm going to hold you to that. I expect to see your name on the next ballot, because we need more people getting involved in politics of all stripes, all levels. It's something to go straight to the top of the ballot when you look at, say, the governor's race with a dozen people on either side of the ballot running for that one. Crowded damn field. And sure, it's tempting to go to the most important race you can run for, but let's be honest, there's a whole lot of other races. I mean, literally, there are people going unchallenged, at least on the primary ballots, and even into the general election from the party ballots, which is just, Can someone explain to me how that happens still at this point? Because I just don't get it. I wonder if someone just forgot to fill out the paperwork, or were like, I meant to, and then didn't go through with it. I got to say that particularly for the parties, this would be, if I found myself in a party leadership position, I would be thinking this would be mission number one. Show up everywhere that is on the ballot and make sure it's represented, because this whole not being there, I mean, again, there was a project years ago in my youth, I do recall, that was essentially registering a ficus in every locality where that was allowable to run against unopposed candidates, only to bring attention to the idea that, hey, these guys are running unopposed, and maybe that's not how our country's supposed to work. Kind of an idea. And the fact that this still continues on in this day and age is just beyond frustrating and baffling. But, well, we got this ballot set. Let's see how we can do going into the next ones. And I'll take it still as a small comfort if we can at least, and I begging and pleading, at least double digits turnout for these elections. Just please, 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 please go vote. All right, enough of that. We'll take this next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get to more of those calls on the line. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. If you're calling in the middle of a segment, it might put you on hold for a minute till we get to you, but otherwise now would be a perfect time to call 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. Several flights at the El Paso International Airport are listed as canceled or delayed this morning because of weather. Meantime, every major school district in the Borderland will be delayed tomorrow, except for Gadsden, which is now on remote learning. Authorities are accusing a 14-year-old East Texas boy of murder in the fatal shooting of his 8-year-old brother. The child died after he was shot Saturday on the back porch of his family's rural home near Athens, Texas. The shooting was initially blamed on a stray bullet from a nearby wooded area, but an investigation and autopsy reportedly proved that was impossible. 3 juveniles were at the house alone when the shooting happened. And the remains of a 25-year-old man reported missing in Houston in December were found in the trunk of a car at an impound lot in Dallas. The decaying body was found on January 19th at the Dallas impound lot and has been identified as Taylor Young. Police say Young was last known to be driving his Honda near a bank. His cell phone was found near an ATM. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a crash reported on the 54 Gateway southbound before Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Another accident reported downtown East Overland Avenue at South Campbell. You could take Stanton or San Antonio as your alternate. TxDOT has closed the 375 Trans Mountain Highway for the rest of the day due to icy conditions, and the I-10 eastbound closing all lanes at Tornillo. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. That was some winter event coming in last night, bringing in some snow, some gusty winds, and a push of some very cold air. And that cold air is here to stay, at least tonight and again for Friday night. By Saturday, we should start to see our slow increase in our temperatures. The big danger now will be the dangerous temperatures overnight with wind chill factors in the single digits at times.
This report is sponsored by Gila River Hotels and Casinos.
Experience bigger, bolder, and better at Phoenix, Arizona's newest resort with new guest rooms, suites, pools, and amenities. Taste the here and now at our new rooftop restaurant and lounge. It's time to own your moment, so you do you. For more information, visit playatgila.com.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur. Doing payroll is no longer a headache for our customer, Jeff.
I've used various payroll providers in the past, and none can hold a candle to Patriot Software. Their software is ridiculously easy to use. The support staff is knowledgeable and courteous. I am very excited that Patriot Software files my tax forms for me, not just providing the forms like other payroll companies do. As a business owner, managing payroll has been a long-time headache that I no longer struggle with thanks to Patriot Software. I definitely rate your company 5 out of 5 stars.
Go to PatriotSoftware.com to get your payroll pricing for up to 100 employees. Use promo code RADIO and get 2 months of payroll processing free. That's PatriotSoftware.com.
PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Check out the new Our American Stories podcast, the show where the American people are the star, telling inspiring stories of history, sports, business, faith, and love, and your stories too. Subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the new Our American Stories podcast.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. One of the better ways to leave your comments throughout the show. But we do have that phone line open right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of talks about the weather and the circumstances we're going in. Don't worry, we're not becoming a weather station, but just I promised that picture that I took right outside our station here. So here's a tree right by our front door that so ours is a eastern facing opening to the building, and tree's still pretty well frozen over with icicles dripping off what was melting off the roof, but we're still below that freeze. So ice and those kind of, if you have any wet streets or streets that were wet, may no longer be just wet but frozen. That's just what we saw in our area. So snap this picture coming on my way in today into the afternoon. So we still got those temperatures, the primary concern. So stay safe with all that out there. But again, taking those calls, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Do have Ray on the east side here with us right now. Ray, thanks for joining us. Ray, you there?
Yes. I was calling that, I still keep on seeing these planes flying back and forth, crossing the border here in El Paso. Either they're going back to Mexico or they're coming back from Mexico. God knows where they're going. And I don't think nothing's being done, but I would suggest that they fly into those blue states instead of unloading them here and breaking the bank over here. And another thing is that sometimes I go to walking around supermarkets, whatever, and I see people that are running for office, like school boards, judges, and stuff like that. But they never put in their poster that whether they're Democrat or Republican. To say this is that, if I'm going to vote for somebody for school board, I don't need to vote for somebody that's a Democrat and is going to go and put that CRT stuff in our schools.
Certainly understand your perspective there, but you also got to understand that there are certain positions that are nonpartisan, even with El Paso County. So what that ends up meaning is that, I think we lost Ray there. Okay, so in El Paso County and in Texas in general, there are nonpartisan seats. Our city council is one of them. So they may not say, they frankly cannot put that they are a Democrat or Republican because, and that's why they're not on the primary. We've got city council seats coming up on this general election ballot. Do not forget, they're just not represented here because they are nonpartisan. Now, that is set and the way that it is, this does not mean that they are probably leaning one way or the other, or maybe still even be using that party's infrastructure. We've had some discussion in the past about the idea that a nonpartisan candidate essentially working alongside one party or the other or using their infrastructure to campaign is cheating. And that's a El Paso bubble kind of issue because that's not the way it works most other places. I've lived in, talked with people who have been involved with politics in those places because, sure, they may not be able to put the D or the R by their name. They can still use their donor network and similar kind of things. So, again, it all comes down to just what they can or not campaign as, but they can still use the same kind of infrastructure. So, I mean, yeah, I've seen similar kind of signs out there. I want to say I saw, not calling out or supporting any campaign in particular, but I want to say I saw Blanca Trout's campaign truck parked outside the Walmart at the Westtown Marketplace last time I was there. So yeah, they're definitely out there getting the message out about them and the campaign signs and all the fun that comes with that we've discussed about in the past, certainly around as well. But again, you got to remember the difference between those partisan campaigns or not. So all the ones we were just talking about, the ones here on the primaries, these are the partisan positions and the ones that will be determined by who then goes on to the general election by this ballot. But there are going to be others that will be determined by the later elections. So just keep that in mind and keep it straight. So, I mean, sure, it would be helpful, particularly, I mean, there are certain positions that would probably do better or not in our area if they were to, say, indicate what their leanings are. But by campaign rules for our area, they can't do that. So this is why, a long way around to say, I encourage you to look up the candidates involved in these elections, because knowing what they stand for, again, it would be helpful. I'll agree with you if they just stated, yeah, I'm a Democrat or yeah, I'm a Republican, so you can make a relevant choice here. Sometimes they can't, literally. But in any case, I find that if you're just voting for them because of their party affiliation, leaves a whole lot of what do they actually stand for and what are they actually planning to do at question for me. So knowing what they are actually, the policies, even just their basic values and how they espouse them is useful, if not the most useful thing that I prefer to focus on, which is, again, the policies and how they're going to go about them, how they actually going to get it to work, how does the rubber hit the road between their plans and implementation is kind of the whole story to me. So that's what I look at when evaluating a candidate, what I like about them, and determining how to, in the balance, make that decision. So that's kind of the other critical thing to make. And then I do have to mention that El Paso's international airport is an international airport. So sure, there are probably flights that are of suspect when it comes to the immigration issues we've had. There are still, passenger flights that go between the U.S. and Mexico and happen between El Paso International and other places. So again, there's plenty of issues we've talked about with that, but I wouldn't say that 100% of them are going to be the ones at issue. At least not in my mind. Anyway, again, taking those calls right now. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I think we got another one on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hi, Andrew. It's Deborah. How are you?
Doing all right, Deborah. What's on your mind?
Well, you just said everything that was on my mind. I get very frustrated when I hear people say Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. Who cares whether they're Democrat or Republican? Tell me what you know. Tell me what you're going to do. Tell me how you're going to do it. And then I'll decide whether I'm going to vote for you or not. I really don't care whether someone is a Democrat or a Republican. And that's the problem with the way people vote in El Paso. They're all about that D. And it's really frustrating and disappointing.
Yeah, that has been not even just a frustration locally, but statewide. That's one of the reasons, at least when it was being put forth as a law, that straight ticket party voting, no longer a thing. I mean, if it got people to vote, I have a trouble saying that's bad. But on the balance, yeah, I wasn't ever in favor of it because just you going in, punching one button, and not even for each candidate you're actually voting for is a little suspect to me. But so that's gone now. So people have to go and actually punch it all. And yeah, if they're just going to go punch straight D or straight R, yeah, at least they're voting. I guess that's the consolation I take, but I would prefer it if they were doing okay, I like this candidate because of this, like be able to articulate why this person has earned their vote besides putting a letter by their name.
Agreed. Great job, Andrew. I enjoy the show. I don't get to listen to it a lot, but when I'm out of work and in the car, I'm enjoying it. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the feedback there and the fact that we're hopefully talking about the right things because, yeah, I mean, we've got some very basic political problems that we need to be dealing with. And so, again, my call that I'm trying not to do every day, but we're getting close to the election here, so it bears mentioning, make your plan to vote. Because if there's, I think, one concrete thing that besides the people getting elected and hopefully having whatever impact they're going to have, if there's one concrete thing that could come out of these upcoming elections, because we've got the primaries, potential runoffs, and then the final November election for 2022 with the midterms and all that comes with it, is proving that we are paying attention. Now, it's a little bit hard for me to tell if everyone who listens here has actually gone out and voted. I certainly hope, if you're listening to a station like that, you have gone out to vote. If you missed the registration deadline for this election, I will forgive you, but you better make sure you're registered for the next one. We've got months ahead of that. So after this one's over, you better go out and register to vote toot sweet. Otherwise, then we're going to have some words. I will say that. So thank you for the point and the call there, Deborah. Do appreciate it. We do have that phone line open. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Coming up on the need for that last break here. So we'll get to another call or two. Do have one of those pound 250 calls to get to as well. And don't forget, we are coming up on Friday as well, that day of the week when we will take on all calls and commentators throughout the hour. So keep that in mind. But still got time to chance to take a couple more here. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. More we can get to in any show. I get hung up on elections a little bit, I admit, but they're just slightly important. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A couple of road closures today to know about. TxDOT has closed the 375 Trans Mountain Highway for the remainder of the day due to icy conditions. And the 10 eastbound ice and snow has closed all the lanes at Tornillo. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds, look for a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder. Stay left. And Gateway Boulevard southbound before Martin Luther King Jr. exit. Accident there, that's off to the right. Stay left. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Gila River Hotels and Casinos.
Experience bigger, bolder, and better at Phoenix, Arizona's newest resort with new guest rooms, suites, pools, and amenities. Taste the here and now at our new rooftop restaurant and lounge. It's time to own your moment, so you do you. For more information, visit playatgila.com.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/earth.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Under Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas economy is full speed ahead. Ranked the #1 state for business every year he's been governor. #1 in exporting products all over the world. #1 in businesses moving to the state. And well over 1 million new jobs since the pandemic. Under Governor Abbott's leadership, the Texas economy is the envy of the nation. But under Biden and Beto, Texas would come to a screeching halt. Open borders causing chaos and endangering our safety. Higher taxes hurting families and businesses. The Green New Deal crushing our economy. On March 1st, vote to keep Texas on the right track. Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. A couple of things we're working on you for in the upcoming days and weeks. Of course, tomorrow we are going to be having our Friday ritual, the Free for All Friday, with your comments and calls throughout the hour and taking on any subject. We usually have, that El Paso specific focus or Borderland impact lens that we apply to just about any subject we take on. But there's more than we can get to in a week of shows of the things that are affecting us here, but also of the other concerns. So that'll be your time to call in with all of those subjects here. Plus, again, quick announcement, had talked about it earlier in the week that the El Paso History Radio Show was looking to a rerun in deference to the weather, given that has been lesser of a concern, even if we're still kind of in it here. The precipitation, not as bad, but those freezing temperatures, again, we got that picture of the tree right outside our building here, halfway frozen, going on just from the water dripping. We've still got some of that weather considerations to go on, particularly for the transportation, but expecting by Saturday that it should be fine by about the time for that program. So that will be continuing on the El Paso History Radio Show, 10 a.m. to noon here on News Radio 690 KTSM on Saturday, where they'll be focusing on the history of UTEP and, in particular, among other things, its architecture, the Bhutanese influence, all of those important things, along with the Centennial Museum. So that's coming up on our air as well. But again, before that, on Friday, we'll be doing that whole free-for-all thing, 4 to 6 p.m. here. It's been another busy week. One thing that I just kind of realized we didn't even really talk about was the rally held not quite for the reelection of former President Donald Trump, because he still is kind of doing that whole coy, if we announce, and everyone that was speaking during it saying if you announce. But, well, it makes a very powerful fundraising tool in the meantime. But, of course, that plays more than a little bit into the mind of some of our listeners and commentators here, as we have also over on the Facebook and as various social media, Leroy Chuck, Ed Clore, John Brazelton, Michael Perez, A.W. Hill, and more. But we did have one of those pound 250 calls on that point in general. Again, if you want to leave us that kind of a message, it's a good way to leave us a comment day or night. So you do it by dialing pound 250 on your cell phone. So hashtag or pound 250. Then when prompted, say Talk El Paso for the keyword, and you can leave your own message like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. In the great words of that great tennis player, John McEnroe, you cannot be serious. I just heard that Barbara, bewildered Barbara, going on and singing the praises of that malignant narcissist, Donnie Dotard doofus. You gotta be kidding me. Hey, if you're gonna sing the praises of that nut job, that insurrectionist, that seditionist, that non-American creep, hey, why don't you sing the praises of Hitler and Stalin and Genghis Khan? Hey, why don't you even try that jerk that killed all those girls, Ted Bundy? Oh, my God, where's your brain?
Again, if you want to leave your own message, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso. And we've come back to it a couple times this program, and even just this show specifically, but it bears mentioning, and this particularly brings it to mind. This is why I like talking about policy, because you start talking about the personalities of people. Oh, he's a jerk, and at least there was some historical difference of the awful figures mentioned here. I don't have enough good conversations about Genghis Khan across my day, I'll say that. But there was almost nothing there, I gotta say, about what was actually done or not done. Again, on the balance, I can't think of, even beyond president, any elected official that I have been on board with 100% of the time, all the way, yes, they are correct, and I will die on this hill kind of situation. It's always been I agree with him on some things and not on others. That's what I find to be the sane proposition. Take what's good, agree with what's bad or doesn't work for you. Because if it's just you take it like a software license agreement, scroll to the bottom, click agree, and you're just good with all the legal text that came above you, that's a little unhinged kind of way to participate in this whole process now, isn't it? If you're just going to say, no, I am either for this guy entirely or against this guy or person or position entirely, weird, and we're going to have issues on that on its own, but furthermore, kind of the death of democracy. And no, I don't mean that as an overwrought, oh, no, if you disagree with me, you're destroying us. I mean, if we can't even have a discussion about, okay, what are the pros, what are the cons, if it's all extreme one way, all good, all bad, no middle ground, that's not reality. That's not how life works. That's not how any aspect of your daily interactions with this sphere and this universe happens. It just doesn't. That's just plain and simple. And if you thought politics was going to be any more simple than that, no, because that's not how that works either. So if you're just going to come out and say there is absolutely nothing at all, frankly, if someone ever comes and tells me that there is absolutely nothing that any person, elected official, party, etc., could potentially even do in the realm of conceptualization, that means that person probably hasn't thought too critically or too seriously about what that party is, what it does, or what it can do. I think more specifically within kind of a scientific terminology, it means it's a non-falsifiable belief, meaning that they're not even within their own imagination is there any way that it could be considered to be wrong, which means that it's, again, not so much fact-based as it is an opinion. And sure, there's the whole opinions can't be wrong thing, but oh boy, I'll respect your right to say it, but I sure as heck don't have to agree with what you're saying. And that's what it comes down to. Literally, the foundation of this country was around the idea that we have, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. And the idea that, yes, there are many peoples, many different opinions and viewpoints that come together in this, but that we have conceptually created a system to come together and still move forward then as a country, a more perfect union, as it is put. again, the critical part of that is more perfect, because perfection is never going to be achieved in this plane of existence, plain and simple, because it's not our lot. It's not what's going to be possible for us. But the achievement and the pursuit of it is more than worthy. And the way that it is achieved, it's by debate, by discussion, by putting forth what is important to you and allowing others to comment, respond, debate, and ultimately try to build some consensus around it as okay, we may disagree on certain value propositions, but we can both agree or all agree that this might be a way to go forward. Because this whole all or nothing system, it's also one that seems to have taken hold, particularly nationally lately, was never how this was supposed to work. It was never supposed to be a lock control on everything or nothing gets done. And that's not even just a can't we all get along kind of statement. That's literally the historical perspective. And when you talk about things like the Senate, for example, as one of the greatest deliberative bodies on this planet, does not just come out of they were doing kumbaya back then. There used to be people who would bring forth canes and heavy blunt objects onto the floor of the Senate in order to fight off the literal fisticuffs that would then erupt down there. And yet things continued. And yet we've gotten where we are now. And yet things may seem particularly contentious right now, but I reject the idea that this can only go further downhill, categorically and empirically, because we've been through worse, frankly, and come out of this. And those who say that only my way is the way out of it, and there's no room for debate, no possible other way to say it, probably with you, maybe, but the rest of us, let's work on actually making things better by talking about it. It's what I know how to do best anyway. That'll leave us here for today. We're out of time for this program. Don't forget, we got that Friday thing coming up. So if you want to get those pound 250 calls in, you can. Otherwise, we'll see you all tomorrow. Stay safe out there. Be safe on the roads, particularly overnight or in the early mornings. Look twice for motorcycles when you're out there. And as always, have a great evening. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police are responding to an accident I-10 eastbound at the Campbell Street downtown exit. I-10 eastbound at Reynolds got a disabled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder. TxDOT has closed the Trans Mountain Highway for the remainder of the day until at least tomorrow morning due to icy conditions, and ice and snow is closing the I-10 eastbound at Tornillo before Fort Hancock. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity. New tires for the car? Here's my card.
I order takeout, use my card.
And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil. What are you going to do? Get a low fixed-rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online, and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR, but with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 4.98% APR with auto pay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com